What's going on, guys? It's MadMatt9955 here, and today we're been going over a deck profile of Gravekeepers. Gravekeepers are a very old archetype, and they've been around probably since like 2002, 2003. Pretty old. Basically, the beginning of being Yu-Gi-Oh cards printed, Gravekeepers came out, and they had quite a few monsters at that point in time. They didn't have all their support that they have now, but this deck is basically a floodgate slash troll the whole entire board. If you don't open up with a perfect hand, then you obviously struggle a lot because this deck is very slow with getting all of its cards. But either way, we're gonna go over this deck profile here, and hopefully you guys like it. If you guys don't, leave a comment. If you guys do, leave a comment, and just leave a like. Oh yeah, and also subscribe. That would be nice. Alright, so for the deck profile and monsters, we run 3 Gravekeeper Spy. Gravekeeper Spy has been around for a long time, and this is a flip monster. What Gravekeeper Spy does for the deck is, while it gets flipped, it special summons a Gravekeeper monster with 1500 or less attack from my deck. So it basically allows you to get an additional monster in the field. Your normal play 1 or turn 1 would be like set Gravekeeper, Gravekeeper Spy, set like 3 to 4 traps and or spells in your back row, and then pass. So that would be like the main play if you opened up with this card. Next we run 3 Gravekeeper Spiritualist. Spiritualist is a newer card. She came out in Soul Fusion in about 2017, so a lot more newer than the rest of the cards. But she gave the deck a new side that allows them to go into a fusion monster. So basically what her effect is that while she's on the field, while Necro Valley is on the field, you can fusion summon 1 spellcaster fusion monster from your extra deck using cards that you control from cards you control and other monsters in your hand or field as fusion material. And then you can only use the effect once per turn. So it allows you to go into your Gravekeeper Supernaturalist, which we'll go over later. Then we run 3 Gravekeeper Headman. Headman is basically your revive of the deck. He's like a monster reborn when he gets normal summoned or special summoned. Basically, just any way he gets summoned, he allows you to target a level 4 Gravekeeper monster, special summon it back. And he has the stipulation on him that he's unaffected by Necro Valley. Now this comes into play because Necro Valley makes it so that nothing can be moved from the graveyard. So the Gravekeeper monsters that have the effects to move things from the graveyard have to specify that they are unaffected by Necro Valley in order to do that. Then we run 2 Gravekeeper Commandment. Gravekeeper Commandment is basically their Terraform type card. They started making a whole bunch of these back in the day where you discard a card and then add your field spell. Well, Gravekeeper Commandment is basically that for Gravekeepers. Goes and searches Necro Valley directly from your deck. Then we run the 1 of Gravekeeper Priestess. Priestess, while she's on the field, she gives all Gravekeeper monsters 200 attack and defense, but that's not actually her good effect. Her good effect is that while she's on the field, she's considered as Necro Valley. So this comes up in some situations where you like put her on the field, and then she's also considered Necro Valley, and then you can use some of your cards that specifically say that you have to have Necro Valley and a Gravekeeper monster. Then we run 1 Visionary. Visionary's in here just so you can basically use them as a Spiritualist target, so you can get additional attack boost on your Supernaturalist. But he's also in here as like kind of a boss monster. You contribute 1 Gravekeeper monster for the summon of this card instead of having to contribute 2. And then he gains 200 attack for each Gravekeeper monster in your graveyard. And if this card would be destroyed by a card effect or by battle, you can send 1 Gravekeeper monster from your hand to the graveyard instead. So he has a little bit of protection. Then we run the Gravekeeper Oracle. Oracle is the big boss monster of Gravekeepers, or from the original archetype at least. And he has 3 different effects. So for his effects, they all trigger off depending on how many Gravekeeper monsters you use to summon him. You can either tribute 3 monsters and or 1 Gravekeeper monster, but if you tribute more than just 1 Gravekeeper monster, then you can use these effects in sequence of however many that you used to summon him. So the first effect would go off to be this card gains attack equal to the combined levels of all monsters tributed for this card's tribute summon, and that's times 100, so he'll gain a little bit of attack there. His second effect that would go off is that he destroys all set monsters that your opponent controls. And his third effect that would go off at the end of all of it would be all monsters your opponent controls lose 2,000 attack and defense. Now that's a pretty hefty loss on their side. It doesn't come up too much. Normally he's just another target for Spiritualist to go into Supernatural to give him big beefy, attack points, but he is in there just in case some reason that comes up, or if for some reason you contribute off and get him on the field. For our last monster that we just play 1 Spellbook Magician of Prophecy. We basically just run him for the Blue Boy combo of play him, add the secrets, and then add the knowledge, and then get 2 cards, so basically just digs 5 cards out of your deck for free. We're going to be moving on to spells now. So for spells, we run 1 Terraforming. Terraforming, obviously, just to get our Necro Valley directly from our deck. Then we run 2 Necro Valley. Necro Valley, while it's on the field, it makes all Gravekeeper monsters gain 500 attack and defense. All cards in the graveyard cannot be banished. Negate any card effects that would move a card from the graveyard to a different place, and negate any effect in the graveyard that changes types or attributes. So it's a pretty good lock card for any deck that needs to use the graveyard significantly. Yeah. That's basically all I gotta say about that. Then we run the one of Secret Village of the Spellcasters. This is another field spell that basically, while you have one spellcaster monster on the field, your opponent cannot activate any spell cards. The downside to this, if you do not control any spellcaster monsters, then you can't activate any spell cards. But if you do the combo right, where you have Supernaturalist on the field, he actually protects your Secret Village of the Spellcasters along with himself if you have Priestess on the field. Then we run 3 Necro Valley Throne. Necro Valley Throne is basically here to add any Gravekeeper monster from our deck to our hand. And the other effect on here sometimes comes up where if you already have the cards that you need, you can activate this card to have an additional normal summon. So you can basically get 2 normal summons off of 1 turn instead of 1. You got to keep in mind though, for this card you can only activate one of these effects. So either you add the card or you get the additional normal summon. So pick your poison. Then we run Hidden Temples of Necro Valley. This is another card that's kind of a floodgate card. While you control a Gravekeeper monster and Necro Valley, neither player can special summon monsters except Gravekeeper monsters. So this basically locks down your opponent from special summoning anything, unless they're playing Gravekeepers, which most people do not. So this is a really good card just to have on the field. The only bad stipulation of this card is that you have to have Gravekeeper monster and Necro Valley, and if you do not control either of those, then this card automatically gets destroyed. But you guys gotta keep that in mind. Then we run 1 Royal Tribute. Royal Tribute can be activated while Necro Valley is on the field. And then this just says that it discards all monsters from each player's hand to the graveyard. So if you play this right and you have lots of spells and traps in your hand and you activate this way, you have Necro Valley, you can rip potentially your opponent's whole entire hand out of their hand if they have all monsters. Now for our draw engine, we run 3 Allure of Darkness. Allure of Darkness is in here. Draw 2 cards, banish a dark monster from your hand. And if you don't have any dark monsters, then you send your whole entire hand to the graveyard. But most of the time, you want to just activate this when you have a dark monster in your hand anyways. Just for a little bit of a draw consistency. Then like we were talking about earlier, we have a Spellbook of Secrets and a Spellbook of Knowledge. Spellbook of Secrets searches out any of your Spellbook cards, and Spellbook Magician of Prophecy also searches out any of your Spellbook cards. So you either normal summon your Prophecy and add your Secrets, or you activate Secrets, add your Prophecy, and then you get your Knowledge at the end to draw 2 more cards. Next, we'll be moving on to traps. So for our trap cards, we run 2 Rite of Spirit. Rite of Spirit is the monster reborn for Gravekeeper monsters. You can just target 1 Gravekeeper monster in your graveyard and special summon it back. And of course, this card has a stipulation of it's unaffected by Necro Valley, so it can actually activate. The trap cards is a little bit slow, but it sometimes comes up, and it's always helpful when it does. Then we run 1 of Necro Valley Temple. This can only be activated while you have a Gravekeeper monster and a Necro Valley monster. But while you have both of these on the field, your opponent's monsters lose 500 attack and defense, and then once per turn during your main phase, if you control no card in your field zone, then you can activate a Necro Valley directly from your deck. Or directly from your hand or your graveyard. And then if this card is in your possession is destroyed by an opponent's card effect and sent to the graveyard, you can set 1 Necro Valley spell / trap directly from your deck, except for itself. So that comes up sometimes. Then we play 1 Imperial Tombs of Necro Valley. Imperial Tombs of Necro Valley has to have the stipulation of Necro Valley and a Gravekeeper monster, but while you have both of those on the field, you can negate anything of 1 spell, trap, or monster effect. So it's an omni-negate. We play 1 of it just so we can search it out for certain occasions, but mostly it's just there as the 1 of for a searchable target. Then we run 2 Infinite Impermanence. Infinite Impermanence, it just targets one monster on the field, negates its effects until the end of turn, and then if this card was set, you can negate all cards in the same column as it, and if you have no monsters on the field, then you can activate this card from your hand. So it's pretty good. Basically just a solid monster negate. Then we run 2 Solemn Strike. 2 Solemn Strike basically is just negate special summons of monsters and negate effects of monsters by paying a life point cost of 1,500. It's pretty good. It's a counter trap, so they can't really activate anything unless they're gonna activate a counter trap against it anyways. Then we play 2 Judgment. Judgment basically negates anything it wants. It negates summons, it can negate spells, traps. It's basically all you really need. It pays half your life points, but once you get farther into the game and you like grind it out and lost a whole bunch of life points, you can pay for like 500 and it doesn't really matter anymore, you know? And our last card that we play is Rivalry of Warlords. In playtesting, this didn't come up as much as I wanted it to. Most of the time, I wanted to actually have a Gozen match there, but either one is interchangeable and you guys can decide which one you want to play. Now going on to the extra deck. For our extra deck, we run 3 Gravekeeper Supernaturalist. Supernaturalist has a few good effects. I wish that his timing would go a little bit more quicker, but he kind of keeps the same pace as Gravekeepers as being a slow card. But he has 2 effects, or 3 effects. His first effect is that he gains attack and defense equal to the combined levels of all monsters that were used for his fusion summon times 100. So you can get pretty beefy if you use Visionary or if you use Oracle with your Supernaturalist. You can get like, I think it's like 12 to 14 level count on him, so like 1200 to 1400 extra is pretty good. Then while he's on the field and Necro Valley's on the field, this card and your field spell card, field spell zone card cannot be destroyed by card effects. And then during your main phase, you can activate this effect. During your end phase, which is the part that I was talking about that's kind of slow, you can add any Gravekeeper monster and or Necro Valley card from your deck to your hand. You can only use the effect once per turn. So you can basically get anything you want from your deck. You just get it at the end phase. I wish it was like right then and there, because then it would be a lot more better. But it is what it is. Then we run 1 Wee-Witch Apprentice. This just says that it needs 2 dark monsters. While it's on the field, all dark monsters gain 500 attack and defense, and all light monsters lose 400 attack and defense. And if this card is destroyed, you can target 1 dark monster in your graveyard, add it back to your hand. So, it's kind of a little nice recursion card. Then we run a Akashic Magician. She needs 2 monsters of the same type, but not tokens. and when this card is link summoned once per turn, or you can only link summon this card once per turn, and then if this card is link summoned, return one monster this card points to the hand. If this, or once per turn, you can declare one card name, excavate from the top of your deck, equal to the total link rating of the link monsters on co-linked to this card. Then if you excavate any copies of the declared name, add them to your hand. Also send the remaining cards to the graveyard. So it doesn't really come up too much. It's more like just to put on the field and send a card back to their hand. But sometimes that comes up. Then we run one Crowley. Crowley's here for basically the spellbook engine. You get to reveal 3 spellbook cards, which is all of your spellbook cards. Your opponent gets to pick one of those cards at random, and it gets added to your hand, and then you shuffle the rest back into your deck. And then he has an additional effect that hardly ever comes up. Turn one level 5 or higher spellcaster monster you normal summon can be summoned without tribute. So you can do that for Oracle or for Visionary, but most of the time you don't want to do it for Oracle. Then we run our Nightmare package of Phoenix to pop a spell or trap by discarding a card. Unicorn to discard a card and spin a card back into the deck. We run one Apollousa, Bow of the Goddess. As long as she's summoned with 2 or more monsters, then she gets counters. And the counters go up by life. So basically, however many counters she has, she gets 800 attack. And by each 800 each 800 attack points, you can take 1 counter off, lose 800, negate a monster effect. It's not a once per turn, so you can just activate it on any monster effect and negate the activation. You can technically get counters on her, so you can get 4 negates, but it hardly ever comes up because this deck's a little bit too slow for it. Then we run one Downward Magician. She's basically just in here for a rank 4 play. She just has the effect while she's on the field during main phase 2. You can also summon this card with a rank 3 monster. We don't play any rank 3 monsters, but it is there for an option if you guys did want to play rank 3 monster for this specific thing. And then if this card this card gains attack for each monster attached to it, and then if this card would attack a defense position monster, inflict battle piercing damage to it. And then after this card attacks, detach 1 material. Then we play one Baguska, and this is basically just going to be a toolbox of a whole bunch of rank 4s. But one Baguska has 2 effects while he's on the field. If he's in defense position, I believe, it negates all effects activated of monsters that were in defense position when that effect activated, and when it's in attack position, your opponent cannot target this attack position monster with card effects. Also, during each standby phase, you have to detach 1 card from this card, and if you cannot, then you destroy this card. So, it's basically just a 2-turn slow play your opponent. When we play one Tornado Dragon, he just has a spell or trap, detach, blow up 1 spell or trap. Exciton Knight, while he's on the field, you can take 1 off at the start of any chain, and then destroy all cards on the field, except for itself, and then your opponent takes no further battle damage when you do that. Then we play one Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is in here basically just to shut down the graveyard, just like Necro Valley does. The last card that we play is Double A Zeus. Double A Zeus is in here to overlay on any of your XC monsters and send all cards except for itself to the graveyard, and then basically be able to poke for 3k. So, I hope you guys liked the deck profile. This is Gravekeepers. They are a pretty slow deck, pretty old archetype, but they do have their ability to stun if you actually get the cards to stun with. But either way, this is MadMat9955, signing out. Peace.